Welcome in. It is Big Ten today on a Thursday. We are presented by Gatorade. Great to have you with us once again, running the full house backfield, the offset eye. Dave Revson, Rick Pizzo, Jake Butt, fired up for this weekend of November. Hard to believe, but man, all these games take on a heightened significance.
And I think maybe most importantly for me, it's the final Saturday for everybody to show the College Football Playoff Committee what they have before the first rankings release of the year comes out next Tuesday, which means on Tuesday night / Wednesday morning, we'll be sitting here arguing about all the things the committee did wrong.
Griping season, yes.
That is the conversation that takes place after that each and every year.
I just love this time of year. I think back to when I was a player and the energy, the intensity in the meeting rooms change, the conversations from coaching staff to players. I mean, this is championship football season. Things get turned up a few notches here.
Long sleeve shirt season as well.
It is, yes. It used to be long sleeve shirt season in October, but that has changed. We've moved it to November, and let's get into our big story. That is an important showdown. Two lost teams. The winner is going to be able to continue its CFP push. Both have impressive victories under their belts. The Huskers, the only team to beat Cincinnati, while the Trojans took down Michigan. There is a strength versus strength feel to this one. Trojans lead the nation in passing offense, 326 yards per game. Huskers second in the nation in pass defense. Just 3 TDs allowed through the air. No one in the nation has allowed fewer. And truthfully, guys, the stakes couldn't be higher, and I think we're going to talk about this a lot with these 2 lost teams, but you win and you stay in that college football playoff conversation.
I mean, yeah, and then you just think about these 2 programs. Like, these are 2 historic, proud programs, blue bloods that have just kind of fallen short over the past decade, and yet here they are knocking on the door. Lincoln Riley gets hired to bring USC back into the playoff conversation. It's year 3, Matt Rhule. We've been talking about it since the offseason, that chance to take a jump, but there'll be only one winner this Saturday, and as you mentioned, the strength on strength, it's the Trojans pass game against the dominant Nebraska secondary. I think the line of scrimmage ultimately will decide this game. The weather report, mid-30s Saturday night. Obviously, Lincoln and the Trojans have struggled on the road. And I got some stats for you here. Michigan's run defense, 15th in the Big Ten in yards per game. Nebraska's run defense, 15th in the conference in yards per game allowed, 16th in the conference in yards per carry allowed. One hidden fact of the Trojans offense, they have been outstanding running between the tackles. They have the number 6 PFF grade in terms of run grade, running between the tackles. They're 7th in explosive run rate between the tackles. And they are number 2 in yards per carry before contact, running between the tackles. You think about what Michigan did. They ran right into the heart of Nebraska's defense. Minnesota did the same thing. I expect USC is going to run right downhill at Nebraska's defense.
You just don't know who's going to do it for USC since they've gotten to like the 7th or 8th guy on the preseason running back depth chart.
Who's pretty good.
But all of those guys have shown that they can run. I also think this is a huge game for both teams, yes, but specifically for Nebraska and all this talk with Matt Rhule in year 3, it's at home, and their schedule in comparison to what USC has the rest of the way, Nebraska's schedule significantly more manageable.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, and I mean, looking forward, selfishly, I would love for that Nebraska-Iowa game rivalry at the end of the year to have playoff implications. How fun would that be? But it starts, obviously, with this game. I want to go and talk real quick about Nebraska's rushing offense. I think Emmett Johnson is the most underrated running back in all of college football. I mean, he is an absolute star. When we called the Maryland game a few weeks ago, Matt Rhule compared Emmett Johnson to Christian McCaffrey, and I'm like, wow, that's high praise. But when you watch him move, the way he breaks tackles, what he's able to do in the passing game, the screen game as a blocker, I think for Nebraska to win, they're going to need to ride Emmett Johnson all the way home as well.
He is second in the Big Ten in scrimmage yards per game, just does so much for them, as you said, in the pass game as well. He really shines, and then he really is their only tailback that they use in any significant amount. It is interesting to think about how important this game is for Nebraska. I mean, we've talked about how long it's been, 9 years since they've beaten a ranked team. And I remember thinking about the Michigan game and just thinking, if not now, when? Like, this was the weekend that it had to happen. It just felt like the stars were aligned, and it didn't, as we know. Now it feels like they get a second chance at it here against USC in a game where, again, if you win this game, you're in that conversation. I don't think there's any question about it.
And it's at night. It's at Memorial Stadium. It's the kind of game I remember early in the Mike Riley era. They were wondering when would it come back around. Night game against Miami. Another historically terrific team came in, and it kind of started to build things up. Like, this is a game they're building up. Matt Rhule himself this week building it up during his press conference. The fans are going to be there. We know the implications. You got to show up. This is a massive game for Nebraska for so many different reasons. It's also Statement Saturday in Columbus. Ohio State, Penn State. This game clearly not what we expected it to be at the beginning of the year because of everything that's taken place in State College. Still, Terry Smith, the interim head coach for the Nittany Lions, was very clear during his Monday press conference, Jake. He said, I'm known as the truth teller in this building, and this could somehow save our season. And yes, I'm going to tell the guys that we are 3 touchdown underdogs. And he said, I can't remember a time ever that Penn State has been a 3 touchdown underdog.
Yeah, and I mean, even Ryan Day spoke to it. He's like, listen, this game is a huge game because I understand how disappointing the results have been this season for Penn State, but they have NFL players all over the roster. Part of the reason we love them is all conference returning play. There is still talent on this team. I'm really curious to see what Ethan Grunkenmeyer looks like this weekend. He is a Columbus native. I'm sure he's had this game circled for an opportunity to play against his hometown team, Ohio State, since he committed to Penn State. And Terry Smith is a truth teller. He's been very vocal with the media about his conversations with Jim Knowles and with Andy Kotelnicki. Basically came out this week and said, hey, I challenged Andy Kotelnicki to start to implement more vertical passing game. He felt like everything was horizontal and at the line of scrimmage. They like some of these young receivers. They're going to attack the Buckeye defense, and frankly, Penn State has nothing to lose. That's exciting. And on the flip side, he's challenged Jim Knowles. It's a complex defense with a lot of verbiage. It certainly looks like Penn State is playing mentally slow at times because they're thinking, can they simplify the defense? You'll need to. Obviously, a big challenge against the Buckeyes offense.
And they're not that far off. I mean, you look at the losses, 4 losses by 13 points, guys. And we've been talking about how good we all think Iowa is. They had every chance in the world.
Should have won that game.
To beat, they had every chance in the world to beat them at Kinnick. So, look, I do think it's different with Grunkenmeyer, although Grunkenmeyer played in that game. But to your point, Jake, I mean, this is a team that brought back the most all-conference players of any team in the country. There's a reason that they were considered the number 2 team. Remember, they were the team that was picked to win the Big Ten in the preseason media poll. And there's a lot of pride on the line here. I guess I just wonder about a young quarterback going up against this Ohio State defense. You just, for all of those intangible things that maybe give Penn State a little bit of an edge to come out and play with a different mindset, there is still, you got to figure out how to use the pieces you have. And it's challenging, nothing against Grunkenmeyer, but you just look at what Ohio State's defense has done to really good quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, something overlooked is the season that Katron Allen is having, right? He's having a Big Ten all-conference kind of season. Nick Singleton has kind of fallen to the wayside because Allen has been so good. But you have those quarterback issues. And again, I'll hit the Wayback Machine and I go back maybe a decade or so, and Christian Hackenberg was this highly touted young guy, and Ohio State was 1 or 2 in the country. And there was all this talk, how would he handle the horseshoe? He went in through interceptions, if I recall, on maybe 2 of his first 3 or 4 passes, and the game was over. That's absolutely what Penn State has to avoid. I know that Terry Smith is telling Andy Kotelnicki, I want you to be vertical. I'm just not so sure I believe it. If you leave those passes incomplete, even if they're not picked off, all it does is give Ohio State more time with the football. You run it, you bleed clock, you try to stay in this game until the very end.
I like it, whether maybe it is a decoy. You know, it very well could be a decoy, but I just think Penn State, there has to at least be a threat. Ohio State has to at least respect that they believe you're going to try to attack them vertically at some point. And for Grunkenmeyer, like, you have nothing to lose. No one expects you to win. You can only be a hero in this game, right? And to your point, Dave, like, talent is the first thing you look at here. If you just looked at talent, Penn State has the talent capable of competing in this game. The results haven't matched it, but they have the players capable of competing. It's just, can it all come together?
The trouble is Ohio State has a roster full of guys who are capable of playing in the NFL next
year. They got NFL players
next couple of years that are just happen to play on college football Saturday.
Joel Klatt reveals his weekly top 10 every week on his podcast, The Joel Klatt Show. It has a distinctly Big Ten flavor, much like the AP poll. Joel has Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Oregon 6. He has Notre Dame 7th. That is 5 spots higher than where the AP poll sees the Irish. And Fox Sports lead game analyst Joel Klatt joining us now. Joel, always like to look back before we look ahead. You had Indiana this past week just pounding UCLA on Big Noon. And I'm not sure if people totally understand how all this works, but when you're calling a game, you typically get there a day or two in advance. You spend time around the team. You spend time in the facility, irrespective of on-the-field stuff. But what stands out to you from the time that you spent around Indiana's team?
Great question. I hadn't thought of that yet, but I will tell you there is a difference between a team that is on a high and experiencing something that they maybe didn't expect to experience. You know, there's like a euphoric nature, a team that gets on a run and it's like, man, isn't this great? Look at what we're doing. And there's a difference between a team like that and a team that you walk in and they just have expected this the whole time and everything's still ahead of them and everything is much more matter of fact. And yeah, you know, this is great, but everything is out ahead of us. And last year when I got to Indiana, it was before the Nebraska game, and there was a bit of a euphoric nature to it. And it's like, man, isn't this great? It's new. You know, can you believe this? Hopefully we can keep it up. This year I went in there and specifically talking with Fernando Mendoza, there was just such a matter-of-fact deal of like, we know we're very good, and we know we're going to win tomorrow, and everything's out ahead of us, and we're just going to continue to try to get better because our goals are still out ahead of us. I think that would be my biggest takeaway from meeting with them, even from meeting with the coaches. The coordinators are always nervous the day before the game, so they're always panicked about like, oh, well, if we get this blitz or this pressure, and they're pulling at their eyebrows, if you will. But the confidence from Kurt Signetti, from Fernando Mendoza, and others. Talked to D'Angelo Pond, same thing. They know they're good, and they know that everything is still out ahead of them.
Very interesting. Yeah, one thing that stood out to me when we were there in the summer, and obviously it's a long time ago, but they had a chip on their shoulder. There was no sense of accomplishment over what had happened a year ago. Instead, it was people didn't think we were good enough, didn't think we belonged, we didn't represent ourselves in that Notre Dame game in quite the way that we wanted to, and now we're on a mission this year, and it's amazing. They played like a team on a mission. They've been phenomenal. They go to Maryland this week. You go to Columbus. You guys have Penn State against Ohio State. And it's pretty interesting to think about what this game was supposed to be at the beginning of the year and what it is now. I mean, you think back to the preseason poll, and this was going to be 2 versus 3, and Penn State was the 2, not Ohio State. And now here we are with Ohio State number 1 in the country, and Penn State, we all know the story, having fired James Franklin and on this losing streak now. What are you expecting from Penn State in a game that certainly at the beginning of the year they had circled?
Everything. Nothing to lose. You know, I expect trick plays, different schematics in some respects, fakes in special teams. Absolutely nothing to lose. And one thing that I think that we failed to realize or grasp, I think, as the public consuming this downfall of Penn State is just how narrow the games have actually been in these 4 losses. Rev, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but you know, they're in double overtime against Oregon and have the football to go win. UCLA, they're driving, they have the football to go win. They lose by a point to Northwestern, by a point to Iowa. And by the way, Iowa is a really good football team, in particular in that building. Iowa is now just a 2-loss team. They lost on a field goal late against Iowa State in what is always an emotional early season rivalry. And then they lose to Indiana, who we just described as one of the best teams in all of college football. They were tied 13-13 with that team with 1:50 to go in Kinnick. So Penn State is not a bad football team. In fact, this is still one of the top talented rosters in college football. They just have lost some tight games. And so I expect them to play with reckless abandon in a lot of respect. And the more fascinating part for me, to be honest with you, is this matchup between Jim Knowles, former Ohio State coordinator, against Ryan Day and Brian Hartline. Both sets of guys, so Ohio State against Penn State and Penn State against Ohio State, they will know uniquely and intimately exactly what the other guy likes to do with the structure of his unit, defensive and offensive, the tendencies that they have, how they like to fix problems. And so from a matchup standpoint and an entertainment standpoint, that's something that I'm most anticipating watching on Saturday.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about kind of the same storyline last week with Ryan Walters going up against Brett Bielema in Illinois. There's more recency here, and it doesn't seem like, if you read between the lines, it doesn't seem like it was the greatest departure for Jim Knowles from Columbus.
No.
So,
I think that Ohio State's going to play really aggressively on offense, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. And again, you guys cover this every single day, and you do such a good job of it.
Thank you.
Ohio State has played, I would say, like very different philosophies based on the game. Very close to the vest against Texas. Very close to the vest against Washington up in Husky Stadium. Wisconsin, air it out. So it's like I'm wondering a bit of like, well, which version are we going to get? And I anticipate an aggressive Buckeyes offense to let the passing game go, because it's pretty clear that the Buckeyes passing game, now that Julian Sayin has his feet wet, that he is the most accurate passer in college football. They've got the best tandem on the outside in college football. All due respect to Indiana with Cooper and Surratt. They've got the best tandem in college football, Smith and Carnell Tate. They can throw the football on anybody, and I anticipate that they're going to be aggressive in this game.
Are you concerned at all about their run game? Ryan Day was asked a little bit about it coming out of the bye. I was listening to his news conference this week, and he said, in so many words, we wish it was a little bit more dynamic. We wish we had a featured tailback that was more, exactly the verbiage, but that was kind of what he was hinting at. Does it concern you at all, or to your point, when you got a guy who's completing 80% to the two best receivers in the country and the best defense in the country, do you just say, nah, we're okay?
Listen, it's a concern in that you'd like it to be better. It's not a concern in that it has not impacted them at all. They've been able to win conservative game plans and aggressive game plans, and partly because of their defense. Their defense has only given up 41 points total on the season. It would be more concerning if it was very clear and abundantly clear that when they didn't run the football well, it also hampered their passing game, right? So, that's the way I feel about USC. When USC is one-dimensional, I don't think they throw the football with near the efficiency or accuracy or potency as they do when they're balanced and they can run the football first because of their RPO game. I don't feel that way about Ohio State. The passing game is not impacted by the run game like other teams. And because of that, it doesn't rise to the level of panic for me. It's a concern in that you'd like it to be better. They'd like it to be better. But I've also seen this team, and I've seen it countless times. The COVID year is a great example. They morphed into a great running team late in the season with Trey Sermon. He set the Ohio State single-game record in the Big Ten championship game against Northwestern. They weren't running the football great early in that season. And granted, they got started in October, and that was a weird year. But this team grew last year from a team that didn't throw the football well down the field to a team that annihilated everybody throwing the football down the field in the playoff. And that's one thing I've always really respected about Coach Day, his staff, and what they do at Ohio State is that they evaluate where they need to get better, and then they go about the business of becoming better in those areas. And generally speaking, that happens. So I trust what I've seen before, based on prior experience, that that's going to get better towards the end of the year.
You mentioned USC in that answer. They've got a really interesting game on the road against Nebraska. It's a huge game for both of these teams. We can kind of talk about the context. There are a number of teams in the Big Ten. You've already talked about Iowa. Teams that are still, were they to win out, are in that college football playoff discussion. How do you see USC Nebraska here? What's the deciding factor in this one?
Well, kind of based on that last answer that I gave you, when USC is balanced, they're really difficult to stop, and it's one of the better offenses in all of college football. They're going up against a team in Nebraska that is really poor stopping the run. 15th in the Big Ten, stopping the run. And if you're telling me that you can give Lincoln Riley as a play caller, Jaden Maiava as a quarterback, and that passing in Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, if you can give them a run game to go with it, they are going to score 35 points. They're just that good. They're that dynamic. Now, the games that they've struggled, Illinois took away their ability to run it. Notre Dame took away their ability to run it. And then their defense succumbed to those power running games downhill to Illinois and to Notre Dame. I don't view Nebraska in the same way I view Illinois and Notre Dame. And in that, I don't think that they're just going to be able to win the line of scrimmage with consistency the entire game. They don't protect the passer very well. We saw that against Minnesota. Didn't he get sacked 9 times, Rev? I believe that's
9
right.
times. Only once though last week against Northwestern.
Right, but that's like Ferris Bueller territory. 9 times. I have it right here, Mrs. Bueller. That concerns me because USC can get after the passer a little bit. They've shown that ability. And so this is a matchup that I just think is bad for Nebraska, good for USC, even though the game is on the road. And that's one of the areas where USC has got to get over the hump is can you go on the road and play well and get a win? And, we haven't seen that a ton. That game against Illinois is a concern, certainly. But I like USC in that one.
Speaking of trying to get over the hump, Nebraska, 3,332 days since they last beat a ranked team. We'll see whether or not this is the day. I know it's crazy, right? It is crazy.
I mean, Rev, I grew up in Colorado.
No, I know.
I rooted for Colorado. These were old Big 8 foes, and then we played them in the Big 12.
Right.
That just doesn't compute to me.
It's crazy.
I don't think people realize. I'm 43. Anybody younger than me thinks like, oh, Nebraska. It's like Nebraska was Alabama. They were the college football program for years and decades. And that run that they had in the 90s, that's probably the best 3 or 4 teams in a row that any program's ever had. Maybe Miami in the early 2000s had teams that were that good, but my goodness, 3,000 days?
I know, it's crazy. Hey, just in that context, I'll leave you on this. We're talking about Nebraska and USC, and obviously you've said you think USC's in better shape than Nebraska. You were talking a little bit about Iowa, the respect you have for them. I think we kind of know, we certainly know Indiana and Ohio State are in great shape. We think that Oregon is in really great shape for the playoff as well. Who do you think that 4th team can be from the Big Ten? We have spent a lot of time talking about this and talking about the different candidates. Washington would be in that discussion.
Yeah.
Where would you go?
Based on schedule, the best opportunity for a 4th team is Washington, because Iowa has difficulty down the stretch. USC has difficulty down the stretch. Washington and Michigan, I should say both of those. It would be Washington or Michigan because they are going to be favored until their last games. The problem is that their last games are difficult, but schedule-wise, Washington hosts Oregon, Michigan hosts Ohio State, and I don't know if you want to give one the advantage over the other. Maybe Michigan's won 4 straight over Ohio State, but those are the teams that I think are going to be 9-2, playing their rival in their home stadium with a win and get in style of game. 60 minutes to get into the playoff. I've talked about Washington all year. They are underrated. They're going to be 9-2 when they face Oregon. I believe it. They're healthier on the offensive line. I was just texting with Jed. They were not healthy against Michigan. Now they're healthy. They're a better team. Michigan is starting to figure it out, play complementary style of football, playing Michigan football. I think those 2 teams are the best chance. Iowa just has a tough November. I think USC has a tough November. By the way, Oregon has a really tough November. Oregon still has to play at Iowa, at Washington, and home to USC. So this idea that Oregon is just going to coast through, man, back to Ferris Bueller. If he thinks he's just going to breeze through these last few months of high school, Oregon, they're going to have to play really good football to be an 11-1 team. There's a possibility they could wind up 10-2.
I'm with you. I really appreciate the Ferris Bueller references. I know you have no way of knowing this, but Ferris Bueller was filmed at my high school while I was in high school. So
come on,
you have taken me back. Yes, Joel, great
Sloan
stuff.
Peterson,
Sloan Peterson, that drive where they picked her up in the sports car. That's my high school.
That was your high school.
North. Yeah, go Spartans.
Hey, just roll her own bones out here, and I'll release your daughter.
All right, my friend. Enjoy Columbus. We'll look forward to the call with you and Gus and Jenny. Take care.
You got it. See you, bud.
Rick Pizzo, Jake Butt back with you. Now, Jake, your alma mater doesn't have the explosive offense of Ohio State, not a top-tier wide receiver, but what Michigan does have offensively is an identity. They are going to grind you, be more physical. They're going to run the football, whether it's Justice Haynes, whether it's Bryce Underwood, anybody else who gets the call to run the rock. And that's going to be the game plan this week against Purdue.
It's the game plan every single week. And let's go look at some film here, Rick, to explore basically how Michigan runs the ball, how they complement their rushing schemes, and then most importantly, how they execute. Very first play is 4th and 1. Any mystery what Michigan's going to do right here? It's going to be the A-gap run. So a few key blocks here. These 3 linemen, both guards in the center, have these 3. The 2 down tackles and the linebacker. Michigan State knows this, so they're going to try to run some movement up front and confuse these linemen. Most importantly for these 3 guys, they have a sort technique. It's 3 for 3. You have to be patient at the line of scrimmage, you have to stay square, and you have to communicate. So let's watch this play out. Look at right away the center, Greg Crippen. He has his eyes on the movement. He's there to collect. El Hadi stays flat and patient before climbing on the linebacker. Perfect technique. So let's watch it once again. Patient at the line of scrimmage. They collect it. Now your right tackle is going to start to wash guys down. Marlon Klein wins at the line of scrimmage. Bredesen comes back to block this defensive end. Well, this guy's going to be unblocked in the hole. He is held by the Bryce Underwood fake keep. 4th and 1 to have this big of a hole, you could drive a truck through it, is outstanding and unheard of. A chunk, effectively explosive play on 4th and 1 is credit to Michigan's run game. 2 great plays here, back-to-back effectively on the same drive. This is what Michigan does. 2 fullbacks in a tight end, 1st and 10. They're basically in a goal line formation. We call this play wrap, back block, back block. The key, once again, is going to be your double team. This time it's your center and your right guard double teaming. Let's watch it. Look at their pad level. Look at their hat and hat placement. They're lifting the Michigan State defensive lineman. Here comes the back blocks once again. Marlon Klein wins. Right tackle wins. And watch this play out. After the double team, he's going to climb, stone the linebacker, and now you have a running back one-on-one in the hole with a defensive back. Michigan likes their chances. Look at Jordan Marshall. Fight for the extra yards. An 8-yard run on 1st and 10, you'll take that every single day. That last play was called wrap. This, Rick, is called wrap bluff. Exact same personnel. There's a tight end. There's your 2 fullbacks. That exact same action. This defensive end is expecting to have to hit either of these fullbacks, but what you see is it's the wrap and then the bluff. The wrap and then the bluff. They leave the defensive end unblocked play side. Bryce Underwood takes him out to the high school dance. Great block by Max Bredesen. Hoffman seals the edge, and you have a 13-yard touchdown untouched into the end zone because of the complementary rushing schemes.
High school dance, and I'm pretty sure there were no corsages or free meals offered by Bryce Underwood on that one. You look at this Michigan rush offense and their ranks inside the Big Ten. They're always going to be inside the top 3 when they are good offensively, and they are good offensively. I think some of the questions, Jake, have come the last couple of weeks with inconsistency on defense. They struggled against USC, figured it out against Washington, and this week you know that Purdue is going to throw everything at Michigan, going all the way to the back of the offensive playbook.
Very out of character day against USC. I mean, the Trojans kind of exposed them. So let's look at 3 plays, and I'll show you what happened. We know with Wink Martindale, he wants to send pressure. This is just going to be a linebacker plug. Ernest Hausman is going to come downhill. Here's a few similarities to consider. A 2-by-2 formation. Quarterback and running back in the shotgun, Michigan sending pressure. If you send a blitz, though, someone has to be there to replace. Who's going to have this C gap? Watch it play out. Who has this C gap? Apparently for Michigan, nobody. You have a USC guard pulling up, hitting a DB 8 yards downfield, and because of their lack of gap sound defense, they give up a big-time explosive run. So they got punched in the mouth. The question then is, how do you respond against the Washington Husky offense? There it is, 2-by-2 formation, quarterback, running back in the shotgun, and Michigan is going to run a C-gap blitz. This time it's Derek Moore going to spike inside. This time Ernest Hausman is ready to replace the blitz. So watch it play out. Here comes Derek Moore. He's spiking up inside. Hausman is ready and waiting. And then most important of all, Hausman is square at the line of scrimmage. That means if it's a handoff to Jonah Coleman, Hausman is ready for it. This time, Damon Williams keeps it. Hausman is ready for it. Also, it allows him to dip underneath the block, contact Damon Williams, and tackle in space. Michigan only had 2 missed tackles that day against Washington. That is the key. Here's what Purdue does. Now it's Purdue's offense against Rutgers' defense. You see the 2x2 formation. There's 2 receivers up top just off the screen and a quarterback running back in the shotgun. Rutgers running a very similar pressure that we saw with Michigan against USC. Here comes the linebacker, but there is no one there to replace. So watch this play out. Linebacker pressure, no one out there to keep contained, and then most importantly, Purdue turned a page in their blocking last week because of the wide receiver blocking. This nickel has this wide receiver in man-to-man coverage. He's going to follow him down, but it's not a route. The receiver is going to go wash the safety. Bang, he hits him, and therefore there is no Scarlet Knight defenders, leading to a big explosive Purdue run. It looks just like the Michigan defense against USC. If Michigan wants to win this game, they have to play gap sound, responsible defense.
It's a huge game for Michigan. You start to look ahead, and I know Sharon Moore and company won't do that. You're favored pretty heavily this week and then expected to win all the way up until that Saturday after Thanksgiving. You beat Ohio State and you finish with 2 losses, and both are on the road against teams that could potentially be ranked. You are not only potentially back in the Big Ten championship conversation, you are most certainly in the college football playoff conversation.
If we look at this game, and Indiana's unbeaten, and they've destroyed everyone they've played other than Iowa. Maryland has won 1 conference game, and yet you look at this game and you believe the Terps have the elements for an upset. Tell us why.
Well, I mean, if you just think about the formula, the making of an upset, you want to turn the game into chaos. You need to create turnovers. Maryland forces a ton of turnovers. Maybe you can make some plays on special teams. Maryland is top 5 in blocked kicks on the season. 3 blocked kicks or punts on the season. Then you need explosive plays. We know Malik Washington is capable of it. All that being said, easier said than done facing the Indiana Hoosiers. The main reason why is it's so hard to upset them. I have yet to see a Signetti-led Indiana Hoosier team show up mentally unprepared. They are consistently ready for the challenge. So if you're Maryland, you need to create chaos, but that doesn't even guarantee anything.
That's why we continue to talk about, could this team be the one to upset Indiana? And then Indiana answers by going out and winning by 50 or 60 points. They beat Illinois by 50-plus earlier this year. Illinois seems to be in something of a bad way right now, especially defensively. So maybe this weekend's matchup with Rutgers is not a great one for the Illini. They're banged up in the secondary. Ethan Kaliakmanis has been throwing it all over the yard, and Rutgers has to be feeling a lot of momentum after somehow stealing that win last weekend in West Lafayette.
I'm really curious how Illinois responds mentally, and this is going to be on Brett Bielema and their leadership, because this is a culmination of last season into this season. You know, you end with 10 wins. They are the media darling to be this year's Indiana. Can they make a playoff push? And now sitting with 3 losses, it's going to be an uphill battle to get there. So I got to imagine there's some disappointment and frustration within the building, but it doesn't matter. Like, you can still go out there and control what you can control. I trust Altmaier and the Illinois offense to put up points, but I am concerned for Aaron Henry and specifically the secondary. We saw what Washington was able to do to them, and Kaliakmanis and these Rutgers wide receivers, no easier task there either. They are absolutely legit. So mentally, this defense is going to have to show up and find a way to respond.
Hey, Illinois yet to hold a Big Ten opponent under 27 points,
crazy,
guys. I mean, it really has gotten bad there on the defensive side. And to your point now, how do you respond, right? Yeah. The narrative for the year was making a push to the playoff. You enter November unable to do that, but you can still win 10 games back-to-back years, which would be the first time they have ever pulled that off.
Developing news on Thursday as Matt Rhule has signed a contract extension designed to keep him in Lincoln through the 2032 season. There is no change in the base salary, but the new extension does include salary escalators should Nebraska make any college football playoff appearances. Of course, a lot of talk right now about who will replace James Franklin at Penn State. Rhule, from there, played there, coached there, knows so much about that program. Clearly a move by AD Troy Dannon to lock in Matt Rhule and say he is going to be the coach here in Lincoln through at least 2032. Now Nebraska needs to go out with this news and play a solid football game against USC on Saturday night.
Right, it has a chance to be a outstanding weekend for Matt Rhule and the Huskers and the Husker fan base. And, I understand, listen, you talk about the playoff escalators. It's year 3 Matt Rhule. You want it to be perfect right now. I mean, Cignetti makes it look so easy, but move that to the side. And to me, clearly the Huskers have made progress under Matt Rhule's leadership. Winning the 1-score games, the turnover margin, special teams has been night and day. But I think most importantly, what I see is a locker room that is completely bought into the messaging of Matt Rhule. We did the camp tour. He was vocal with us and said, hey, if this team wants to get where we all want it to go, it needs to be led by the players. This is suddenly a player-led football team. They are embracing the messaging of Matt Rhule, and it's been really fun to cover them and watch them this year.
They're way better. I just think it's indisputable that this program is in a much better spot than when he took it over. And so if you feel like you have the right guy, particularly given all those outside pressures that you talked about, Rick, the natural ties to Penn State, he did not close the door to going to State College in his press conference. He was very open about his love for Nebraska, but also very open about his affection for Penn State, which we all get. Yeah, he's from there. He went to high school there. He went to college there. I mean, the place has a special meaning for him and his family. So you totally get it. I think the other thing, too, is you don't want to be on this coaching carousel this year if you think you have the right guy right now. There's too many open jobs.
High profile, great jobs.
Everyone believes in their job, and Nebraska's a great, great job. Where does it fit? I mean, I think it's up to who the candidates would be as to what they would prioritize. But if you think you got the right guy, lock him up. And kudos to Troy Dannon for doing that.
I mean, real quick, I look at Brian Kelly and why LSU moves off of him. Was not invested in the community or the state. Matt Rhule, not only is he a great coach, he has invested into the community in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah, legitimately said his wife has a business there. Ask her, too. I mean, this is not a Matt Rhule only decision. For Jake Butt and Dave Revson, I'm Rick Pizzo. Thanks for the hang here on Big Ten Today.